There's an ocean of oil beneath your feet, and if it were up to you, it would all be yours. If only things were that easy. You'll have to fight, outmaneuver, and even work with your opponents if you want to come out on top. But what about the little guy, the independent oil maverick? Their efforts are admirable, but this is a global game now. There's no more room in the world for the Wildcatters. It's the beginning of the oil industry as we know it, and as president of your company, it's your goal to supply the most oil to the world. You will need to discover, pump, and move oil in exchange for what else but victory points. A game of Wildcatters plays over a span of 7 or 8 rounds, and after some initial setup, players will have some shares in their company and their neighbors along with some oil equipment and some established infrastructure on the board. Every round follows a strict procedural flow of play. First, the active player chooses one of the available area cards and receives the bonus indicated on the side. This card will dictate which area of the map the rest of the turn will take place in. By expending workers, you can build drilling rigs, trains, oil tankers, and refineries. If you're short on workers, you can sacrifice some victory points. If after building there are at least 4 drilling rigs in the area, you can decide to drill an oil field. This can only be done once in each area per game. This will transform one of your drilling rigs into a pump jack with some oil barrels on it. It's a strong move, but it comes at a significant worker cost, and it allows other players in the area to follow by converting their drilling rigs into pump jacks as well. But if those players take up that offer, they must pay you 3 of their company shares. This will also trigger an auction for the Wildcatters in the area. Players bid in shares for the rights to these small independent oil companies. The winner will take control of the Wildcatter and a barrel of oil. Major bonus points are awarded at the end of the game, depending on the number of Wildcatters you manage to control. You can also develop more of your drilling rigs into pump jacks with the accompanying barrels of oil. Then, you can decide to transport a barrel of oil from each of your pump jacks by paying workers. Other players can follow, but they can only transport 1 barrel of oil regardless of the number of pump jacks they have in the area. Every time you transport your oil over another player's train, you must pay them shares of your company for the privilege. You can deliver your oil to the local refinery, or board one of the tankers in order to deliver to another continent. The owner of the refinery will pay you shares for each barrel you deliver. Now, you will empty any full refineries on the map. If the refinery is not yours, you will move the barrel to the continent scoring area and receive 4 shares from the supply. If it is your refinery, you have a choice. You can put the barrels in the continent scoring area and receive no shares, or return the barrels back to your supply for 4 shares each. Victory points will be awarded at the end of the game, depending on the relative amount of barrels delivered to each continent scoring area. Finally, if you have enough shares of each company, you can turn them in for a consolidation chip, which will give you a steady flow of income of shares and some victory points. It's a rigid turn structure, and though not every step will be carried out every round, they must be taken in the order prescribed. It can seem stifling at first to have every moment spelled out for you, but with the help of the well-thought-out player aid and a few rounds under your belt, things start becoming second nature. And once that happens, you can start seeing the clever game beneath the structure. The board slowly builds up and a tentative dance emerges. First, you start building your drilling rigs and trains, hoping that someone else will pay the heavy cost for starting the oil fields and opening the floodgates. You hope that others will be forced to ride your rails. You hope that others are funneled into your refinery. But everyone else is hoping the same thing. You aren't working together as much as you are trying to leech off of each other's hard work. This means your victory is as much about you bending the game to your will as it is taking advantage of the other players at the table. Maybe it's starting an auction when you think your opponents are low on shares, or monopolizing all the transit in an oil-rich area. Everyone wants their oil out of the ground and is willing to give up a little if it means making the most in the end. Wildcatters is a game about shared incentives. It's in everyone's interest to start an oil field, but it's a game of chicken deciding who's going to do it. It's in everyone's interest to deliver oil to a refinery, but are you handing over too many shares to the refinery owner? It's about timing and understanding the playing field, who's strong and who's a guppy, picking your spots and striking when the moment is right. The rigidity and restrictions force you to focus on the immediate problems in front of you. When a North America card is chosen, your focus is on North America. When the transportation phase is in effect, your focus is transportation. It breaks down a complex game into manageable chunks. Form, gives way to creative maneuvering, and much like poetry, the restrictions are, in reality, a form of freedom.